I think my parents wondered if I now was going to be I had like joined the other side, like, okay, we're from the San Francisco Bay Area. It would almost be like I became an LA Dodger fan with, baseball.
Hey friends, and welcome back to Conversations with Jewish Believers in Jesus. My name is Jeff Morgan. I am a Jewish believer in Jesus. And today I have a very special guest with us, and his name is Josh Sofer, a Jewish believer in Jesus as well. He's also the director of staff development with Jews for Jesus. He's here to share his inspiring journey of faith in Jesus as a Jewish man that was also raised in the Bay Area. Josh, it's really great having you here today. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, Jeff. It's great. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, my pleasure. I've been looking forward to this. I also grew up in the Bay Area. I loved it there. Now I'm in Israel, and sometimes long to see myself back over there. But it's great being here in Israel, even during this really challenging time with the war going on and everything. But to see the people come together in solidarity is really uplifting. So. Something else that's really uplifting to me is the stories and testimonies of Jewish people that put their faith in Jesus. It's a rarity, but it's becoming less and less of one as I witness more and more Jewish people opening their eyes, making decisions for themselves, opening up the New Testament and realizing that this is way different than what I thought it was. I'd love to hear the story of how you as a Jewish man came to faith in Jesus, if you'd like to share that with us.
Yeah, I would love to. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, it is. You and I both are from the San Francisco Bay Area, so we have that in common. And and I think in some ways, we both were raised in this kind of unusual environment in the San Francisco area that is mostly secular, kind of political, and we sort of imagine ourselves as kind of forward-looking and forward-thinking, and and so a little artsy, maybe, a little activist-y kind of, maybe, right. And that was the world that I was raised in, and like you and I were both raised in, and there were not many Jewish people who believed in Jesus, although there were not very many Jewish people who believed in much of anything in the world that I was raised in. We were a pretty secular community. Traditional, went to Jewish camp every year, celebrated the holidays. Passover was a big deal in our family. Hebrew school, had a bar mitzvah. And so we really felt very proud to be Jewish. We loved being Jewish. I never had any bad Jewish experiences. But there was never really a connection with God. There wasn't a connection with the Bible. The Bible was a sacred myth. Whether it was true or not didn't even really matter. It was kind of our myth. That's the way I was raised. So I was also, as a young guy, a little kind of on the philosophical side. I'm sure that also meant I was a little bit on the annoying side from time to time for my parents when I was a teenager, although most teenagers are for their parents from time to time. But a buddy and I, after school, decided to travel for a year. And we spent a year in New Zealand and Australia, kind of traveling around, hitchhiking around. And that's where I first met Christians. And they asked me what I believed. I told them I was Jewish. They got all excited, which I thought was a little strange, but I thought, all right, could be worse, but they were excited. They said, oh, we love the Jewish people, it's great. And they started asking me what I believed, and what if I believed in Moses and in the Bible and in Jesus and in David and in heaven and in all of these things. And I said, guys, I'm just Jewish. I don't know about any of that stuff. And so I knew that I didn't believe in Jesus, but that was about it. And so, I got a job at an apple orchard picking apples. And so we had lots of time on our hands. So we would just talk about religious things throughout the day. I would ask them lots of questions. One of them loaned me a Bible, and I could read it in Hebrew. I didn't really understand the Hebrew, but I could read it slowly. But this was the first time that I've gotten a Bible in English. And so I'm flipping through. I did this thing where I put the thumb over the New Testament part, and I wasn't going there. So I'm like flipping through, and I landed on a book that was short enough that I thought I could kind of read in one sitting. And I liked the name. It's called Ecclesiastes. In Hebrew, it's Kohelet. And I read the book of Ecclesiastes, and honestly, I read all about me. I read about my dreams, my fears, my anxieties, the criticisms that I saw of the world, and the things that I loved in the world. And I was struck at how relevant the Bible could be for me and the modern world. And that is, I think, really where things started to move for me. So over the next couple of weeks, I just started reading the Bible more and more. And I would come home and I would just read the Bible in the evening for a couple hours. Never found the Bible particularly hard to understand. But the more I read the Bible, the more I found that it was sort of drawing me in. I liked it. It didn't have these, messages of, oppression and misogyny that I was kind of raised to believe. And I thought, wait a second, why am I reading something that's so different from what I imagined? So then I said, okay, time to crack open the other half of the book. So I started reading in the New Testament. Now, I was convinced the New Testament was a handbook for anti-Semitism. It was about the oppression of women. It was about keeping a sort of strata of society in power. And I read the New Testament and read something that is just about opposite of all of that.
Right.
And I found myself, Jeff, doing something that I never thought that I would do. I found myself being attracted to Jesus. I couldn't get enough of Jesus. And here I am, I'm reading about Jesus. I'm thinking, man, he's got all kinds of things that are good, and it wasn't so much, the prophecies from the Hebrew Bible. It wasn't anything like that. I just wanted to know more about who Jesus was. And so that's really what drew me in. I think what moved it then was one of these guys that I was working with said, listen, if you want to know God, and you want him in your life, all you have to do is ask him and pray. I'd never prayed before, at least not in my own words.
Right.
And I did. And I asked him, I felt very uncomfortable. But as I started communicating to God, he started communicating with me. I wasn't really expecting it, but it happened. And so that was in the late 1980s, 1988 in the spring. And so over the course of the next year or so, made a commitment of my faith, started learning, started studying. God became alive to me. And I ended up coming back home to the States, got involved in a church, which is a whole interesting story in itself. I visited a few. I didn't know anything about church, right? Like Baptist, Catholic, Presbyterian, West. So I stayed at the one that had donuts before the service. and then there you go. That was off to the races. So yeah, so that's my story. And
well, I have a question. You have a Jewish family, and a lot of times when people like us put our faith in Jesus, we're met with a lot of resistance, maybe some rejection by our family. What did you face with your family?
Oh, it was rough. It was really, really, for years, it was really rough. At the time, to be honest with you, I'm not sure I really understood why they were so upset. I thought they might have been upset about me, about, some detail of the Christian faith. But as I've gotten older and I've, my relationship with my parents has been reconciled, what I come to realize is that it was more of a cultural thing. So in my world, our worldview was secular, a secular Jewish view of the world. And I think my family understood that I said no to that. And I said yes to Jesus. So I think part of it is just that I made a religious decision and that I embraced the idea that God exists. I think even that was hard for my family to understand. The other thing was, I think my parents wondered if I now was going to be sort of, I had like joined the other side, like, okay, we're from the San Francisco Bay Area. It would almost be like I became an LA Dodger fan with, baseball. And so, they're rivals. And so that I joined the other team. I think that's kind of how they felt. And over the years, what's common, my experience is common for a lot of Jewish believers, is that our identity as a Jewish person, as we believe in Jesus, actually our identity as a Jew gets stronger.
Yeah.
It's not what most people expect, but it's common. Happened
to me like that. I actually, when people would ask me if I'm Jewish, I wouldn't even answer. I wouldn't give a direct answer. Be like, oh, well, I'm just me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I put my faith in Jesus, all of a sudden it was like, yes, I'm Jewish.
Yeah.
And not only am I Jewish ethnically, the traditions actually became more appealing.
Yeah.
And so much so that, we still do them with my family now. My wife and I are both Jewish believers, and we celebrate the Jewish feasts and holidays with joy.
Right. So I would say it took me and my family about 15 years before we could really talk about this. There was a lot of hostility, a lot of anger, a lot of kind of misunderstanding. I think there was a lot of people feeling guilty about, oh, well, if we would have given Josh this or this, then he wouldn't have believed in Jesus or something like that.
Yeah.
And so there was a bunch of other things that were kind of going on in my family as well, but this got thrown into the mix. What
changed in your life when you put your faith in Jesus? Because there are a lot of testimonies of faith where my mind was changed, my heart was changed, things in my life outside of me changed. What happened to you, Josh, when you made that commitment to Jesus?
Yeah, I think my life took on a level of purpose that was bigger than just me.
Yeah.
I think my life took on a connection with God, which I mean, if you would have asked me before, do you want a connection with God? I wouldn't even have known what you were talking about. I just had no concept of it whatsoever. But I remember times in that first year of believing in Jesus where I prayed, and it might sound a little weird, but I remember praying for hours and being so kind of taken with the presence of God. It almost felt like being on a date. Now, that's weird. Like, I'm not saying I'm dating God, right? But that idea that, like, how when you're on a date with someone that you're really infatuated with, time just sort of goes out the window. You say,
it's so satisfying.
Yeah, we talked for 5 hours and it felt like 5 minutes.
Right.
That was my feeling as I was connecting with God. So that was really pretty revolutionary for me. And then I actually think that what started happening was that through my faith in Jesus, my whole life all started becoming redeemed. My mind started becoming redeemed. My habits started becoming redeemed. My ethics started becoming redeemed. My language started becoming redeemed. So slowly, all these pieces of my life all started kind of coming together.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. There might be people out right now that are watching this that have fears, which are totally reasonable, and are wondering. Take us back to the young Josh, the younger Josh that faced these fears. What would you tell people today that are curious about Jesus, especially if they're Jewish, might be afraid of opening the New Testament, talking about things with their parents and friends? What would you tell them?
Yeah. I mean, I would say, and I recently had a conversation with someone about this, is I said to, and this was a guy, I live in Los Angeles now, and it's a guy, he has since embraced Jesus as the Messiah, and he comes from a religious Jewish background. And I said to him, if you go down this road, it might not be easy. And he said, what do you mean? I went, well, you might find that there's some people that will respond to you difficultly. You might have some brokenness in your relationship. It won't be forever, but you need to just make sure that you have some kind of strength to you as you're going down this road. And I would say that would be something that I would say to people, is that, it's an important decision, much like all of the other important decisions in our life, that we need to go into those decisions with a level of resolve and commitment to see it through.
Yeah.
The second thing is that it's not forever. If someone does respond difficultly and you have a tough time with them, it most likely is not going to be forever. Even in the most difficult circumstances, it won't necessarily be forever. And so, you can hold on to that, and you might not see the fruit of that for a while. It's funny. I actually had a similar conversation with someone in Israel several years ago. This was a guy who grew up in a very religious Haredi community in Jerusalem, and he joined the army. And this is a community that doesn't serve in the army.
Right.
And actually, his serving in the army in Israel ruptured the relationship that he had with his father. And I asked him, and he had been out of the army for maybe about 5 years. He was living in what's in Israel called a lone soldier house. And I said, so when have you talked to your dad last? And he said, it's been about 3 years. And I said, where does your dad live? And he goes, about a mile down that way.
Wow.
So here he had to have the strength to make the decision to kind of stick with it. And I asked him, I said, well, what is the relationship like with your dad now? And he said, well, it's softer than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But I still think we have a ways to go. I hope that young man and his father have since had some reconciliation. I hope so.
Yeah.
That was the case for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Josh. I'm sure your story will inspire many and spark curiosity as well. So if you'd like to contact Jews for Jesus, you can visit our website at jewsforjesus.org. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And stay tuned for more episodes with Josh Sofer coming up. And may you all find peace, hope, and everlasting life in our Messiah, Yeshua. God bless you.
Amen.